The 15th Cavalry Brigade was a brigade-sized formation that served alongside British Empire forces in the Sinai and Palestine Campaign. During the First World War, originally called the Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade, it was formed from Imperial Service troops provided by the Indian princely states of Hyderabad, Mysore, Patiala and Jodhpur, which each provided a regiment of lancers. A maximum of 3 regiments served in the brigade at any one time. The states of Bhavnagar, Kashmir, Kathiawar and Idar provided smaller detachments for the brigade, which was at times reinforced by other British Empire regiments and artillery batteries when on operations. In October 1914, the Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade was moved by sea to Egypt to become part of the force in Egypt defending the Suez Canal. In the first 3 years of the war, the soldiers were involved in several small-scale battles connected to the First Suez Offensive, but spent most of their time patrolling in the Sinai Desert and along the west bank of the canal. It was not until November 1917, as part of the Egyptian Expeditionary Force, that the Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade was involved in the Third Battle of Gaza. The following year, the brigade joined the 5th Cavalry Division when it became the 15th Cavalry Brigade and played an active role in the British victory over Turkish forces in Palestine. In total, 84 men from the brigade were killed in action or died of the wounds, and another 123 were wounded. Several memorials were erected to commemorate the brigade in the Middle East and in India. The anniversary of the brigade's most famous victory, the Battle of Haifa, is still celebrated today by its successes in the Indian Army. Background: in 1888, the Indian government proposed that the independent armies of the Indian princely states provide the British Empire with troops for service on the northwest frontier and outside the Indian subcontinent. The states' forces were recognized by the Indian government and the British Indian Army as allies, and the troops were subject to the Indian Army Act when serving alongside the Indian Army. When in the field, the commander of the British forces alongside which any Imperial Service troops were serving was recognized as the higher legal authority in accordance with the Act. To eliminate supply problems, states' armies' field uniform and weapons were the same as the regular Indian Army, and the Indian government appointed a staff of officers designated military advisors and assistant military advisors to assist the independent states as rulers in the training and organization of the forces. Imperial Service troops were commanded by Indian officers. In contrast, British Indian Army units had British officers in all senior command posts. Their own Indian viceroys' commissioned officers were trained to only a trooper platoon level of command. The Imperial Service troops included cavalry, infantry, artillery, sappers and transport regiments or battalions, with several states contributing both men and equipment. The first states to provide troops for active service were Gwalior and Jaipur from the Chitral expedition in 1895. Hyderabad sent troops to Burma in 1898 and to the Second Anglo-Boer War in 1902. During the 1900 Boxer Rebellion in China, part of the British Relief Force contingent was an Imperial Service Brigade, raised from the troops of Alva, Bikaner and Jodhpur. Bikaner also sent troops to serve in the 1901 Somaliland Campaign. By the start of the First World War, the princely states together provided 15 cavalry regiments, 13 infantry battalions, 7 transport units, 4 companies of sappers, 3 Camel Corps regiments and 2 batteries of mountain artillery, totaling around 22,500 men. Brigade Organization. In October 1914, under the command of Brigadier General William A. Watson of the British Indian Army, the Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade, of around 1,700 men, was gathered at Deolali for service in the First World War. The brigade headquarters had an establishment of 7 officers and 47 men, including the brigade commander. There were 5 British officers on the brigade's staff. Also attached were Sir Pratap Singh, the Maharaja of Idar, and Captain Zorawar Singh, the commandant of the Bhavnagar Imperial Service Lancers. The Kathiawar Imperial Service Signal Troop, commanded by Captain Henry Street, George Scott of the 4th Gurkha Rifles, were with brigade headquarters, with an establishment of 1 Indian officer and 27 men of other ranks, including 12 dispatch riders from Idar state. The brigade also included the 124th Indian Cavalry Field Ambulance, commanded by Captain T. O'Leary of the Indian Army Medical Corps, with an establishment of 5 Indian officers, 1 British and 10 Indians of other ranks. The fighting component of the brigade was formed from 3 cavalry regiments, each of 4 squadrons. The 1st Hyderabad Lancers, commanded by Major Muhammad Azmatullah Bahadur, with 27 officers and 533 other ranks. The Mysore Lancers, commanded by Regiment-A, Chamraj Bahadur, with 32 officers and 487 other ranks, and the Patiala Lancers, commanded by Colonel Nand Singh Sardar Bahadur, with 26 officers and 528 other ranks. This formation remained the same until May 1916, when the Patiala Lancers were transferred to serve in the campaign in Mesopotamia. The brigade regained its own 3rd Regiment in May 1918, when the Jodhpur Lancers, commanded by Colonel Thakur Pratap Singh Sardar Bahadur, which had been serving on the Western Front in France, arrived in the theatre. The final unit assigned to the brigade was the Imperial Service Machine Gun Squadron, formed on 10 June 1918 by amalgamating the 3 cavalry regiments' machine gun sections into 1 unit. Some sources refer to the squadron as the 15th Imperial Service Brigade Machine Gun Squadron, even though the brigade was an Imperial Service unit. The cavalry regiments and brigade headquarters included attached British Indian Army Special Service officers, but only as advisors. In 1914, the 3 cavalry regiments had 2 SSOs attached, and Colonel J. Desaraj as Commander-in-Chief of the Mysore State Forces accompanied the Mysore Lancers as an observer. The Jodhpur Lancers joined the brigade with 7 SSOs attached. Throughout the war, the establishment of British officers assigned to the cavalry regiments was gradually increased. In February 1915 there were 4 in each regiment. In 1917 another 2 were assigned, and in mid-1918 a full complement of 12 British officers in each of the regiments was reached.